Hello and welcome to the Kyushu Basho podcast with Team Tachiai, and we are here ready to talk to you about the upcoming November tournament. Joining me is the creator of Tachiai, Andy. Say hello.
Hey Bruce, how are you?
I'm happy to be here. Josh, our man, is once again in foreign lands. Say hello and good morning.
Konnichiwa, dudes.
So it's been I think there was an extra week in this one between Aki and the start of Kyushu. Kyushu is once again going to be held in Western Japan, and at Fukuoka Dolphins Arena, which is really, I think it's great that Sumo is trying to get back out into the public away from Tokyo. Dare we hope that there will be Jungyo at some point? Boy, I sure hope so, because man, the sumo world has been awfully quiet and awfully still in between tournaments since COVID. But we can get into that a little bit in a little bit. We can't even begin to talk about the November tournament without talking about the biggest news in sumo in probably 20 years, which is the boss has retired. Hakuho decided to hang up the mawashi and exit the sport as the winningest Rikshi, the winningest Yokozuna of all time. I, for one, am going to be sorry to see him go, and sorry that we won't get to sit around and go, yep, Hakuho wins. If Hakuho's in it, he's going to win it, sort of stuff. I mean, the man crushed sumo for so long, but you know, every person has their time to say goodbye, and he went out with a big win. So I think that's the way you've got to do it. So Andy is a senior member of Team Tachiai. Give us your heartfelt comments on Hakuho's retirement.
Oh, I mean, it was great to see him overseeing Keiko just a few days after the announcement. And I mean, he obviously had just an unparalleled career on the dojo, but that's just going to be one side of his career. It's a little bit weird that he had to sign away, I guess, some any grumblings of malcontent or whatever before joining as an oyakata. But I think that they were probably pretty freaked out by what happened with Takanohana, and they didn't want somebody to be bigger than sumo itself. And so by being able to just kind of make sure, hey, you're one of us, you're not, you may be the GOAT, but you're not, you're an oyakata now, and you're the lowest oyakata. I think that it's just going to be the start of his next career, and it's already looking like he's got amazing plans for what he's going to build and his new stable. I'm really, really looking forward to it. It'll be a little bit weird to have Ishiura as the Heiagashira, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be in that position with Hokuseiho coming up right behind them. I'm not sure if Enho is going to challenge for that anytime soon, but we'll see. It'll be very, very interesting times, that's for sure.
I think so too. They did give Hakuho a bit of a yank on the leash before they let him try to settle into the oyakata role. I think that I think you nailed it, Andy. Josh, your thoughts on the boss retiring?
So, as you say, Bruce, the big question was, before he retired, is he going to be able to use his name Hakuho as the greatest Yokozuna have as his elder name, and then fires that there's this big conversation over, should we even let him be an elder at all? Should we even let him be a coach at all? And as you say, sign a document that I'm going to behave myself and I'm going to do a great job and I'm going to fall in line and I'm going to do all this stuff and a little humbling maybe, but I think we all got a little caught cold on that. You know what I mean? I don't think any of us would have possibly expected that, when you look at everything that he's accomplished. And I think, raising recruits is not the be all and end all judge of what you contribute as an oyakata. But I think it's worth pointing out that even while active, he's raised more sekitori than some oyakata have in 30 years of their career of being an elder. And there's some who've never had, even more recent, if you want to call it recent, Yokozuna Musashi Maru never has, right?
Yep.
So, even when you look at his peers as a Yokozuna, there are people who haven't, and Ozeki who haven't raised many. Kirishima, Michinoku Oyakata only raised a couple, and so as you say, the fact that you even have these Ishira Enho, Hokuseiho, there have been others, Daikiho in the past, as Sekitori already, and we're only really on day one here. Just sort of shows the potential of what he might be able to do. And I think that the thing that for me, this whole sort of saga and everything that's transpired in the days following his retirement kind of brought home is, after we watched that last new show and his incredible celebration and the fact that he got slapped on the wrist for that and everything, you had all these fans kind of coming out online and saying, well, the Sumo Association won't stand for that, or they're going to hate him for this, or they're going to do that. What it really showed when you had this debate was that there is no, this is what the Sumo Association thinks. It just really rammed home the fact that there are a lot of disparate personalities with disparate opinions, and they got to talk about these things. Actually, it ended up being, it seems like a small minority of people that said, we don't want Hakuho, or we want Hakuho to behave a certain way. And there are clearly more people who did approve of him being able to continue his career in this fashion. But, it really shows, I think, especially for people who are new to sumo, there's a transition, probably most of the way through, of what happens on the dohyo. There's also going to be a transition in terms of what's happening off the dohyo, and as the Kiseno Satos and Hakuhos of the world become aware, and Goedo opens his stable potentially, and Takekaze opens his stable soon, you're going to see this new generation of people become a little bit more influential, and it's going to be really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, there was a massive cohort of really excellent rikishi that we've enjoyed for most of the last 20 years. And the time has come now where almost all of them have rotated into their oyakata status. And so I think it's going to be time to see, can they translate skill on the clay into raising a great bunch of new fighters. So let's on the clay, let's transition on that. There were joint Keiko sessions conducted by the Sumo Association, one of which got televised. And I have to comment that for the first time, I think ever, there was adequate bandwidth, and it did not go into horrible Chunko-vision mode more than a few times. But, it seemed to be fairly lightly attended, right? I mean, we had some Kanban rikishi. We had Meisei, we had Miragoyu, Takayasu, Kirabayama, Onosho, Kagayaki, Mataki Yumi, I think, showed up one day. I think Ishiura showed up one day, and Nishikigi showed up a few days. But none of the big heavies, Satogo Take, no Kokonoe, no Isegahama folks. And I know that they've got these thick stables with lots of people to practice with. But I'm a little surprised that you don't hear anything from the NSK encouraging people from the bigger stables to come out and, if nothing else, lend their chest for some Butskari. Josh, do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill?
Maybe a little bit, not too much. I mean, I think, when we talk about what these things have looked like before, you've had Hakuho and Kakuyo is just kind of showed up because, they weren't in a position where, because of the situation, the pandemic, they weren't able to sort of use their Yokozuna privilege to go around and practice and do Degeko with whoever they want, which is generally what they'd be able to do. They say, I want to practice with a rikishi who can do this. I want to practice with a pusher thruster. I want to practice with someone who has a lot of different techniques, and use that privilege that I have to get myself ready for the tournament in ways that perhaps an Enho can't really prepare Hakuho for the tournament. So for him, it was a very positive thing, and as like a very senior rikishi, it was important for him to show up at those types of things. So in that context, I think it was a little striking that you have Yokozuna Terunofuji, not there, Ozeki Shodai not there, Ozeki Takakeisho not there, and as you say, these are all guys who have, other people in their stables that are, top division guys. And in some cases more than that, or close to it, that they can practice with. Shodai probably needs it the most. And so, it was more that sort of absence of the very, very top level of seniority, or senior Rikishi, that I think for me kind of stood out. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens with something like this as things kind of turn into what people are calling the new normal. When do they start allowing people to visit stables again?
Yep.
There are certain guys, Mitakayumi, Myogiru, who are going to really benefit from something like that in a way that a Terunofuji won't, who doesn't need to be doing maybe more than whatever it is that he needs to do to get himself in shape for a tournament. So are you making a mountain out of a molehill? Maybe a little bit, but there's still value in this thing.
I guess maybe it comes down to my missing Jungyo and watching the whole pile up of people smash into each other for a few days. But Andy, you've got some of these guys who are from smaller stables who struggle to get ready for a tournament that showed up. Do you think that there's any utility going on here?
I just think that this time we've really had a bunch of guys who were trying to play it very safe with their injuries.
Yeah. Well, Josh brought up Shodai, and Shodai really only has Yutakayama to fight against, and I think the last time he was there, he got reprimanded too, right?
Well, exactly. He got burned by the oyakata, and he also got a slight injury from Takayasu for participating, and so that's why I was kind of thinking it may have been kind of throwing some caution to the wind. And I guess in the past, I kind of saw it as an opportunity for a lot of the Sanyaku to really be there with Hakuho, or to really participate with the Yokozuna, even if, I think there was one where he participated, but then didn't actually I guess he didn't dress up for the basho. But I think that was kind of an opportunity for them to learn from Hakuho and from Kakuryu, and I don't see that for right now. I think that Terunofuji is just, he's got the knee injuries that he's not going to want to he's going to want to play it safe. And I'm pretty sure there was just an autobiography put out by him. And so I think that with the I guess all of the latest events, I think that he probably had enough excuses for why he was not going to participate, that it ended up just kind of being a good bit of practice for some of the I guess lower, and then for the Komusubi, and I think that it was really kind of more of a good PR for the Pokemon tie-in, where they got like some good pictures in there, and that's gonna bring a big boost of Kensho, I think, in the next year.
That'll be good. So we have Rikishi stacked up, waiting for the retirement ceremony, like a foggy day at LAX. We have Aminashiki, we have Yoshikaze, we have Tochiozan, Toyonashima, Sokokurai, Koto Shogiku, Kakuryu, Koto Yuki got his cut, right? Ikioi, Toyo Hibiki, and of course Hakuho now. And the one that I didn't rattle off there is Guedo. Guedo was always an interesting little mystery, is that he would practice like nobody's business. He was a hero in practice, but somehow managed to not quite put it together, except for a couple of times on the doyo. But Josh, now there's a rumor that he's close to starting his own stable. Would you like to fill us in a little bit on that one?
Yeah, in some ways it's not too surprising, because as you say, he's a former Ozeki who is noted for his dedication to training. And, I think the only thing that's a little bit surprising is Hakuho, obviously we know all the guys that he's recruited even while he was active. Kisano Sato, when he became Araiso Oyakata, news started to come out about people that he'd recruited, and there hadn't really been too much of that around Goedo. He's been attached to maybe one recruit that I know of since he became an Oyakata over a year ago. So, there was a rumor came out. I think the news was broken by popular YouTuber Chris Gold, Chris Sumo, in one of his videos that this was something that would be happening in the near future. Is subsequently confirmed by someone on Sumo forum who's close to Sakaigawa stable. I think we're sort of waiting for a little bit more of an established source. I think that unfortunately, Chris Gold does a really great job kind of like chasing down sumo news in Japan, but he also kind of attaches himself to a lot of like really wacky conspiracy theories. So the problem is, when you're attached to a lot of conspiracy theories, it kind of throws some of the news into question. But that all being said, I think it's if it is going to happen, and it sounds like it would happen in the sort of first 2 quarters of 2022, then as we kind of alluded to earlier, that sort of transition to this sort of new era of oyakatas and maybe this, sort of I don't know, the influence of who's in the association, who's leading stables, and what they're doing. It'd just be interesting to watch because, some of the other guys that we've been talking about for a long time, certainly on this podcast, what's going to happen when Kisano Sato and Hakuho open their stables and they have a dedication to new methods? Where's Goedo going to fall into that? We haven't really, discussed, how modern or ancient his methods might be. So that'll be, I think, for those of us who watch these things, a kind of an interesting thing to pay attention to.
All right, Andy, your chance to take a crack at what will the future stable. I guess it would be Takekuma.
Yeah, and it's not all that surprising because Ryogoku is probably just about 5 years away from retirement himself. And I imagine that it seems like Goedo, well, there are several oyakata in that stable, and that's one of the ones like Sarugatake that I've been kind of looking at of who is going to be the real successor, who's going to continue on when the current oyakata retires, and then who's going to branch off onto their own. And it does not surprise me if Goedo is going to eventually branch off on his own because he as a former Ozeki, he definitely would have the cachet to kind of build his own great stable. And it seems like Iwakiyama, who is already in, which is above the Toshiori elders, he's already like a member of the Kyokai, and so it would seem he would likely be the one to succeed Sakaigawa. And I mean, his age wouldn't have him retiring for quite a long time, and so to me it just makes a lot of sense to see Goedo kind of going off on his own. His rapid rise, I mean, he went from Maezumo to Sanyaku within 4 years.
Yeah,
and
wasn't he a youth sumo participant?
Yes, yes, so. And he, he was very. He was not one of the, I guess, amateur greats who gets like an accelerated entry into either Sandanmei or into Makushita. He had to start from the bottom, but with that youth sumo beginnings, he was able to really, I guess, find a lot of success early on, and he definitely was probably one of the best sekiwake ever, even if he kind of poo-poo his Ozeki career as one of the Kadoban twins. I mean,
well, he was injured quite a bit. I mean, he had that ankle rebuilt twice. I mean, the fact that he kept going is a testament to his dedication.
And that's the thing. I would love for his, I guess, stability at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about like our current crop of Ozeki, I think we were just kind of a little bit spoiled with Kisa Masato at that time,
Oh yeah.
and so yeah,
And Koto
I think that,
Shogiku before his knees gave out. I mean, the Kyushu
I mean,
bulldozer was a thing of great. But let's move on. We were talking about Goeido and Youth Sumo. There was there was a neat video that came out on Twitter and on YouTube from Youth Sumo of I call it a tiny Yokozuna Doyo Iri, complete with a, a miniature Gyoji, which was first of all, it was very interesting, and second of all, my wife thought it was completely adorable. But Youth Sumo seems to be bouncing back. Andy, thoughts on
and
that?
well, and the thing is, that's in no small part to what Hakuho did
Yeah.
with the Hakuho Cup, and I mean,
Do you know, is the Hakuho Cup going to continue?
I hope it does.
I hope so too.
I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, but I really hope that it does because he's done a lot for not just the Hakuho Cup, but he's been building like youth dohyo
Yeah.
around Japan, and I mean he even I guess in the aftermath, John Gunning I think had written about how in the aftermath of the earthquake in 2011, how he had gone and helped to build a dohyo there, and he's just always been very dedicated to youth sumo, and I think that that's what really has been, I don't know, already getting him his head start
Yeah.
as an oyakata.
He's out there tending the next group.
Oh yeah, I mean even when he was, I mean 10 years ago when he's still Yokozuna,
Yeah.
he's already out there recruiting Hokuseiho and that kind of thing in the airport. I mean, Morita Hiroshi had he mentioned that in the NHK piece that they had after the retirement announcement,
Yeah.
and a lot of the other articles really mentioned how Hakuho really helped foster youth sumo. And so, I mean, to me, when I see Wanpaku Sumo or when I see Amasumo or Amazumo, when I see the University Sumo, it's just kind of where I can gauge the popularity of the sport, as well as where you can really start seeing some of the, I mean, like some of the young Goeidos, where we first were introduced to Ura, even though he was much slighter back then. It's where it's kind of like watching college and high school football here.
Yep.
I mean, it's
Okay.
where we get to see the young guys come up.
All right, Josh, got any thoughts on youth sumo? I know that it was a big focus for Yoshikaze when he was active, and I think it's where he wants to put a lot of his time as an oyakata. But I don't know. Thoughts? Do you think it's going to help?
Well, I hope so. I mean, he's certainly been challenged in his start to life as an oyakata, but I think to your earlier point, after the couple years that we've had, it's nice to see anybody doing a Yokozuna Doyo Iri. So we haven't had so many of those over the course of the past year.
Nice.
So even if it is a 10-year-old, I guess that's fine. Yeah, I mean, the amateur sumo is something and he's been following it a lot more, especially recently. It just kind of reminds me of everything that you're just talking about of this photo that Inside Sport Japan and John Gunning posts like every 6 weeks. That's like this photo from 15 years ago of the podium at some competition, and it was like Goeido and Kaisei and Tochinoshin and Masuto, who unfortunately never made it to Sekitori. But just the fact that the podium at some of these amateur sumo events might end up being 3 or 4 guys who go on to have long and distinguished careers in the pro ranks, and so that in and of itself makes it something that is a little interesting to pay attention to and interesting to watch. And there are certainly people who pay a lot more attention to that than I do. But yeah, as I say, it's just interesting to follow who the next generation might be, and happy that now that we're in a different phase of this new world, that these events are able to take place again.
On the theme of long and distinguished careers, it's high time for us to give our salute to Jason of Jason's All Sumo channel on YouTube. I think everyone who's listening or watching this has at one point or another enjoyed his videos. He has been the conduit for sumo into the Western world for the longest time. Before there was NHK global streaming broadcast, he was the way that you got to watch sumo matches. The man is an institution. He's been doing it for a very long time, and he has announced that he is stepping down and moving back to the United States. Given that he'll be in U.S. time, his ability to actually produce these videos becomes really kind of strange, because for him, they'll be happening in the very early hours of the morning. And trust me, having done a couple of these live blogs during the top division, man, you are completely wrecked the next day. But I don't know. Let me give some of my fellow contributors a few words. Josh, anything you want to say about Jason?
Yeah, I mean, Jason, as you say, I mean, he's in the online sumo community an absolute legend. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with him in my time in Japan. He's an awesome, genuine guy. We did an interview with him actually on Tachiai back in the day, and just kind of talk about how his channel got started. So if you haven't seen that, definitely give it a look. And I think the thing that stood out was actually that was the first time that Jason and I had ever talked. And it was just, during a time I was in Tokyo and he was, where he was based in Japan, and it was before we met in person. And the thing that he said that always kind of stayed with me is that, if you watched his channel, it was always kind of like watching sumo with a buddy. Yep. And, regardless of where you come from, you might be someone like the Grand Sumo Breakdown guys, where you're four guys in a town somewhere and you all can get around and talk about sumo together. But there's a lot of people who are in various communities all around the world who maybe don't know someone who's interested in sumo. And that's, I think, for me, the great thing about his channel was that I think for those people, or people who maybe don't have access to NHK or NHK Premium or these kind of things, you have the ability to go on there on YouTube and watch sumo with somebody and hear their opinions and hear what gets them excited about sumo. And I think that is there's a real joy in that he was able to give to a lot of people and bring to a lot of people. And also just he's so unashamed, isn't there, but just so effusive genuine in his love.
Yeah, he's genuine, authentic.
Fuji in particular, he just to be able to see someone who loved a particular rikishi so much, and for that to come through was really cool. And so who knows what form, as he said, his channel will take after he moves to the States. But whichever way it goes, obviously we'll miss his contributions going forward.
So Andy, sumo fandom really for a long time pivoted around Jason's channel, and we're in an odd spot now. I know Nato Sumo puts videos up, but he can't keep them up because they're basically highlight reels of the whole show. A lot of people, including some people who are part of the NHK crew, have said, "Hey, NHK, what you really need to do is have a durable record of at least miniature versions of the bouts for every day." I know Kintamiyama has tried to sort of put down the video editing mouse a couple of times, but keeps finding himself being pulled back in. I don't know. Can you give us your thoughts on the magnitude of Jason stepping down? I mean, I salute him for his endurance and how much he's produced, but man, I'm going to miss him.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, I think that it really was his content that he provided in his personality that kind of protects his videos.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't know. I definitely don't know the legalities of YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But when I was watching a lot of sumo ages ago, Araibira would just basically show the whole tournament, and he would get shut down over and over and over again. A lot of content stripped down, but like I think that Jason's ability to, really put himself and his color commentary
Yeah, front and
into
center.
that. It wouldn't have been anything. It definitely added to the whole thing. And Josh had mentioned his love of Harumafuji. I'm sure that colored my image of Harumafuji. He well, and we all know Okinomi
Yeah.
because of Jason. I mean, otherwise, I probably wouldn't know about the Oki Islands and things like that in Shimane-ken. And so it it not only showed us the sumo, it kind of personalized
Yeah.
the fandom and made us, I don't know, not realized that it wasn't all just, in Tokyo around the Kokugikan or in Osaka. There was
He
fandom
was the
else.
nexus around the early English language sumo community in the
Oh yeah,
sort of digital era. He was the nexus, I would say.
yeah,
I mean, Kintamayama had his role as well, but he'd put up the videos and those were great. But Jason would actually talk about what he liked about him, what the prior matches were, and all the rest of that. It was it. Thank you, Jason, for everything you've done, and it was a huge effort. And I hope it lives on for 1,000 years because, man, you were the original. And with that, we've got to call it done for the first segment. Thank you all. Join us for the next segment where we preview the Basho and we have our always regrettable predictions. But until then, this is Bruce Henderson, Associate Editor. Thank you very much, Josh. Thank you very much, Andy. And remember, for Sumo, it's Tachiai.